Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode number 71 of the Lift Free and Diet Hard podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Coates. I'm always happy to be here with you, bringing my great friends from the industry leaders, and sometimes they're both. Patrick Umphrey is my guest today. Patrick is an old friend from the industry. We met in 2017 at a fitness conference and have stayed pretty close virtually ever since, but he's long overdue for a reappearance because he appeared on the original version of the podcast with Dean a long time ago, several years ago.
Was that Fitness Devil? Was that the name of it?
The old iteration, the Fitness Devil. So anybody who's finding it new is going to be wondering, okay, cool, there's 71 episodes. Actually, there's an additional 150 going back in time where we had John Berardi was one of the last guests before Dean had to depart and raise his daughter. So, and he left me the keys to the kingdom and insisted I carry on. And honestly, it's been one of the smartest decisions. But this is about you, my friend, and you are an online coach. You're a powerlifter. You're notable in the industry because you have this 20,000 person strong Facebook group called Eat, Train, Progress, which you're deeply immersed in. And, despite not having the largest Instagram following in the industry, you are widely respected and known amongst, the evidence-based fitness community, the industry leaders. When I went to that first Kansas City Fitness Summit in 2017, the first one I went to, your name kept coming up in the presentations before I kind of figured out the significance. And then you and I end up memed together.
Yeah.
A lot of presentations ever since. So it's sort of turned into a running joke, but it's great to have you on.
Thanks for having me on. It's great to be back, and I look forward to just having a good chat with you. The meme that Andrew is referring to, it's funny because we have vaguely similar facial features in that we're both gingers. That's about where it ends as far as like what is similar, because you probably outweigh me by 80 pounds of muscle or so, and you can very well see that when you put us next to each other. And so I think the original meme was like, I'm the before picture or something like that. So it's
absolutely,
it is hilarious, and I love it. So every time that thing pops up, I laugh.
The industry has had some great fun with it. I wanted to get you on here, obviously, to pick your brain about you and I when we talk, or certain themes always come up, and I love the idea of brand growth and media growth, and we get caught up in this idea that following has to show up in by certain metrics. And I know that Instagram is kind of I would say benchmark, because it's probably the best hub for a lot of the known figures in the industry. And we know that a lot of people who have very large followings aren't otherwise well respected, and a lot of people who are very well respected haven't scaled large followings. But following can take a lot of forms. And if you have a 20,000 person engaged Facebook group, or someone has a very large email list, which you can never be really displayed as a vanity metric, and someone really goes out of their way to wave it around. I wanted to pick your brain on what the experience has been like over the years with that group, what it's done for your coaching career, your business, and its value.
Great question. So that group has been, by a huge margin, the best thing for my coaching business, because almost all of my business either comes from that group or comes from clients who run other groups who will tag me as their coach and show their lifting videos. I then get clients from other groups and some referrals, but the majority of it comes from either people that are directly participating in my group, or people that are just kind of lurkers, but they now believe that I have a good reputation from what they've seen in the group and in other areas online. And that's where the business comes from. And I think that, not being an in-person coach anymore, other than going and handling lifters at powerlifting meets, I think that that's a good thing, because that's where my business kind of has to come from. But yeah, the group's been absolutely awesome. And it would be hard to itemize like what I've learned running the group, but it's been a mix of amazing, just kind of watching this thing grow. It's been awesome, but it's also been frustrating in some ways. Not frustrating like I dislike it, but like you have considerations where like moderating a large group it's a huge challenge. And I think that we are more moderated than the majority of groups. We probably have more rules. Not everyone agrees with those rules, but I'm fine with that. But I really do believe that is one of the things that makes the group really good.
You've had a few very high profile, like kicking people out, just an absolute tantrum of glory to just say like, fuck this person. They gotta go.
Yeah, like, it's funny because on the one hand, I can appreciate that people can have values of like just not being mean to people. I get that. But then there's just sometimes where it's like if someone's just being an absolute douche, like I kind of don't have a problem with letting that thing resolve itself by, maybe 20 people rip on the person before he gets booted. And it's like, all right. So I understand that that's possibly a bit of a hypocrisy on my part, but I'm okay with it. So
your playground, your rules, right? And I honestly know that you are not. I mean, we know that people operate that way and take advantage of it. We know that you operate with integrity. And if someone is going to get themselves like sent to the door with a very, very large display of that removal, they've done something to warrant it.
Yeah, and with the better ones, we have we have famous threads in there that keep getting bumped where we track them. Like if there's a funny one, like we had one person. So one of our rules is that we don't allow self-promotion of any kind. And a lot of groups have that. If the owner or the company that runs the group is a coaching company, they don't want other people coming in there and advertising their own services. And that's completely reasonable expectation. And as an aside, people who do go in groups and then secretly send DMs to people to solicit, that's a shitty thing as well. And I think that that's something that business coaches are probably out there teaching. But anyway, I digress. Maybe we get back to that. But
we'll come back to that.
Yeah, but there was one where a guy showed up. He's a fitness professional. This was several years ago, and no one knew who he was. And his first post was, "So what would you guys like to hear me blog about? Or what would you guys like to read from my blog?" And it's like, and he got just destroyed. Like, oh, it was hilarious. Random story, but like it was just so funny because we were like, well, who the hell's this guy? So
I remember the aftermath discussion of those sort of things. Yeah. I personally, I find it very difficult to keep track of what's going on in different Facebook groups. And I'm at the point where there are ones that I highlight and respect and share. And what I kind of tell people to do is if you want me to engage in something, just tag me. If I'm in there, great. One of my bigger pet peeves is when you get, you accept someone's friend request on Facebook, and a lot of the time we accept people who we don't otherwise really know, but okay, a lot of mutual friends are clearly a coach. They're not a business coach. We'll come back to that. And all of a sudden, the first thing is an invitation to like their page or invitation to their group. And for me, that's almost fuck. Okay, I'm deleting this person right away. Like sometimes I'm tempted because like we have no rapport. I don't know anything about you, and immediately I'm getting an invitation to a group, and it's. Our time is valuable. And if you're worried about moderating and a group of that size, plus doing all the coaching that you're doing, like the last thing you have hours to do is to scroll through other people's groups. But I still think that a group can be powerful. It's just if you're starting.
Oh, absolutely.
Don't invite everybody or any new Facebook friends to that group. Also, too, if you're looking to create a group that serves your business, then other fitness professionals on social media probably aren't people who are going to be much of an asset to you reaching the end user you're looking for, because they're not going to feed their people into your group. They just won't, and don't ask.
Typically that, I would agree with that for the most part.
That one, like, unless you really earned it, right? And I think you're an exception.
Sure.
And
thank you.
Those are not the people that you're also marketing to unless you're a business coach. So let's fuck with business coaches, because I know that you enjoy that. And
oh man, it's so fun.
Who are exemplary people with integrity who actually do coach business. They're business mentors. Luca Hosevar is someone who I always highlight a lot of my media. Pete Dupuis is fantastic. Mark Fisher. There are quite a number of great people like that. Jonathan Goodman certainly operates in that space. And then we have other people like the boys from Compound Performance, Matt Domney and Kyle Dobbs. They're great. Our Jordan Syatt and him and Mike Vacanti have a mentorship for personal trainers. There are good people out there, but I can assure you that the great business coaches are still, or have for a very long time, operated a business to have the reputation and noteworthiness in that space to then turn around and educate people. When I see someone who looks like they're 12, send me a request that says, I help business owners, trainers scale to 7 figures or whatever, I look at this crap and I laugh.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. And I think that it is worth noting too, and perhaps people will think that this is a justification to be shitty to people, but I'm still going to say it. I think that this is a predatory behavior, and that is why I don't have an issue with putting these people on blast. Now, I have put a few on blast in my group, but I don't name their names. I leave it anonymous because it's mainly just me enjoying the humor in it. But the truth is, there are so many that will randomly show up in your DMs, have no evidence of them ever being successful, and will try to charge an absolute, what I think is a ridiculous fee for their pretty bad business advice. And so, and a question I've had too is, and I truly don't know the answer to this, by the way, because I do not consider myself to be like business savvy. I'm a coach, and I happen to have a big Facebook group, and my business is doing well, but I don't consider myself like very knowledgeable. So the question I have is, do we think that this tactic of just randomly meeting a stranger and spamming them, is that actually a good way to run a business? And I have to think that if you're selling something that's not a person to person, like if you're selling widgets or just an anonymous, thank you, product, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe that's the numbers game. But like, I have to imagine that when you're dealing with people that you're going to be communicating with on a regular basis, you don't want to be an annoying bastard. Like, it's just like, what do you think of that?
Well, you're absolutely right. And I was going to say, there is the philosophy of numbers game that does technically work in a lot of industries or in a lot of formats. Anybody with an email list, when you're sending out and marketing via an email list, there is a numbers game that is there. But at least there, if you have someone on your email list, you probably have developed a relationship with them to the point where they've, the permission marketing, Seth Godin stuff, where they've given you permission by giving you their email address. And in the case of Godin's written several books. He's a respected business leader and teacher. And that's true of all the names I said earlier. These are people who've established that reputation. And after a certain point, people give you permission to interact with them in that way and market to them. What we have, I think we have these mills pumping out these business coaches because people are learning this skill and they want to skip all of the steps. We also see trainers do the same thing. It's not just business coaches, but trainers. And for me, it's weird. Like the common advice of having the elevator pitch in your bio. I hate that. I absolutely don't like it. And some of you guys listening probably have them. I'm not judging you, don't worry. But I find that if the elevator pitch is the first thing that I see, then your media profile comes to me like it's a marketing profile. Now, I treat my Facebook and I treat my Instagram like professional pages. But my bio highlights career accomplishment, which is my belief is what we really should highlight. Have we written for any notable publications in the industry? If you value that, I think that's a great pursuit. Do you have a YouTube channel? Do you have a successful podcast? Do you own a physical facility? Are you the owner of an online coaching business or an educational mentorship or anything like that? Those things give you great credibility. If you've written a book, right? Like who's it? Melody Schoenfeld. Okay, Melody's
great.
Melody's written books. Who else has written books? Josh Hillis. He's written
for anyone. Josh Hillis is great too. I am a big fan of that dude. Melody's hilarious, by the way. So if anyone has not met her yet, she's funny as hell and very, very nice person. So I just needed to throw that in.
She's become a really good friend. I've met her at events, years past. She's presented at a bunch of events that I've attended. And just this past September, I went down to Luca Hosevar's Fitness and Business Summit, which is one of the events I really try to make a priority of in Renton, just outside of Seattle. And Lee Boyce was supposed to attend, but ultimately he couldn't, because just coming down from Canada was a real headache for that one. And Melody and Lee are writing a book together. So Melody, knowing that Lee was supposed to present and that I would be there, she came up from California and hung out for a couple of days and met a whole bunch of people. I introduced her to Luca because I wanted to put Melody on Luca's radar. And ultimately just, have a bunch of people meet each other and have a good time. It was great to hang out, right? So, she's a good human being. She's like you, someone who's never really invested in a large social media branded following, but she's written books in the industry. She's a speaker presenter. She's a very credible, evidence-based person, really deep in the research side of our industry, who I want more people in the industry to know about. Josh Hillis, sort of thing. And Josh didn't have much of an Instagram following until we started interacting, and he started using some of the tactics that I did, simply the Twitter-based post, and his stuff's phenomenal. It plays really well.
Great. It's great.
And then I started pushing him, and of course his following grew really rapidly. And he's a great guy. I pulled him on the podcast, and I try to I believe in.
That's I completely agree with you. And I would bet that, like you mentioned, the good business coaches, I would just have to believe that they're not the ones that are the annoying spam your inbox that they've never spoken to you before. I just posted about this yesterday, but dude, I had a guy, I'm not going to name him. I'm not at all trying to attack someone. I'm talking about the circumstance, not the person. And so I want to be clear on that. Maybe he's a great guy. He has now messaged me 6 times about the same thing. And I have 3 conversations where he's asked me about my business, and not to brag, but like, I'm doing well. I'm on a wait list, and like, I have enough business that I'm happy. Right. Yeah. And so I don't desire any business coaching because I'm accomplishing what I want to accomplish. And I've been very clear about this, and I'm always polite to these people. I'm never really rude. And so, but it's like, I've told him in detail 3 times, and it's like every month I get the cold, like the same question. And it's just like, do you not remember that? Like, can you scroll up? Just like, it's just hysterical.
I've had enough of these conversations with them, just to sort of screw with them a bit, and every once in a while they make a mistake. And so what I figured out, and several have admitted, is they use assistants to do most of the cold messaging.
Yeah. Well, so how does that work?
The ones that are more well-known. So there really are 3 types of business coaches in this space. There are the people who've own the physical facility, been doing it a long time, really respected, and by and large still are really heavy into the main business they did. Luca's like that. Ellen and Rachel Cosgrove are that type of person. Mark Fisher, all the names that I said who are respectable types. There's a second group that have been around for a while who generally engage in the goofy tactics, but they're at least established in that space. And I will say some names, and I'm not saying in a disparaging terms, but your Alex Hermosi and Gym Launch, his entire thing is, and I understand he sold it. I don't know him, but
he's the dude with the mustache, right?
He's the guy with the mustache.
Okay.
This guy, Ruben Drader, who has been in my DMs on multiple different things and not remember. And I'm like, dude, just go over, check your, on Instagram, go check your Facebook Messenger, like we talked there, right?
Scroll up, dude.
And I'll say this guy too. Tanner Chittister is another one of these guys, and these are spammy marketers, right? And they don't seem to have any real history or much credibility outside of just being flashy business coaches that have been around long enough that at least they're recognizable, right? And then there's the ones that come out of the mills, probably taught by the second tier, who are immediately right out in the business coaching space. The one that we love screwing with, and I'm comfortable saying the names because I don't respect these people.
Sure.
Frankie Fiore, right? And he has his little minions.
I've heard of that dude. And he has like, does he have like a bunch of profiles or something, or are they just like minions of his?
He's got a whole bunch of minions that are all like, they all talk about the founder. It sounds like this like sci-fi cult thing that's
hysterical.
L. Ron Hubbard would have written about, if you guys get that reference.
They're like the trash mobs before you get to the boss.
Yeah, kind of, exactly. Right? World of Warcraft reference for everybody there. Sure. And we don't want to make it seem like we're totally shitting on these people, but I think most people in our space are smart enough to realize, okay, cool, this shit's nonsense. And I sometimes I just, out of pure temptation, I'll accept the friend request, I'll wait for the message, and then all of a sudden it's like, so what do you do in your career? And I'm like, and now if I even enable this sort of stuff, I'm like, do a Google search or go look at my Instagram. You'll get all the information you're looking for. And I sort of deflect the conversation. And it's not a you know who I am sort of thing. There's no pompous.
Right.
I'm fucking with these people. And a lot of people are going to be smart enough to say, I'm not wasting any time on this at all. But every once in a while, it's a bit of amusement. And I think this is top of mind for you because recently a really funny exchange happened where I had one guy, never heard of him before. I totally accepted the friend request, sends me a couple of messages, the benign stuff. I respond the way I usually do. Don't hear from him for like a couple of weeks. Then he pops back up and starts in again. Anyway, so I did the whole thing, or hey, go and blah, blah, blah. I sent him a couple of voice messages, actually, kind of, make it light of the whole thing. And all of a sudden I get this notification that a message has been unsent. So I'm like, what? So I go in immediately and I grab a screenshot of all the messages that are remaining. It shows one unsent. Then unsent. And he goes and he unsends every message. So I share it both on social media with the guy's picture. I didn't give a shit, right? And I'm just like, look at this crap. And of course, people have a laugh at this stuff. And I'm careful about, I'll do it once in a while, simply to make light. I'm not interested in tearing down these individuals. I mean, I think it's predatory. And ultimately, when you deal with predatory behavior in any way, shape, or form that it shows up in the industry, it is okay to highlight this. I don't subscribe to cancel culture. I don't like big public teardowns, but I think it's okay to highlight predatory behavior. So that way, young emerging coaches understand. And I think that's a difficult fine line that often people dance around. I just don't like vicious roasting marshmallows on the bonfire of the demise of someone in the industry, almost regardless of what they've done, right?
Yeah, I mean, I prefer to keep it anonymous unless it's something just completely, heinous. But every time I can think of that I've blasted someone, my preference is to keep it anonymous, just because I don't want people to like go dogpile on them or message them or anything. It's like, for me, I do want to, though, highlight the behavior and talk about why this is not okay, but then also have a good laugh, because legitimately, if you like 6 times, like what, here's another question. At what point would a rational human think I'm probably wasting my time here? And so it's a legitimate question, because I think some people might think number 7, that's going to be it. Like, a 7th time I message them, I'm going to make that sale. And
But marketers are taught that. We are, as trainers, taught to circle back and check in. Now, I mean, there's a common sense of picking up on the vibes and the cues of what someone is spitting at you.
Yeah, and that's my point. And then totally we're saying it that way.
But there is something to be said. Now, I'm one of these types that I don't like smashing down objection after objection after objection on a sales interview, right? Like a client consultation. If someone is really serious about working with me, then we'll have a great conversation. I usually find that most people coming to me are pre-sold, or they're coming in warm, knowing my work, my reputation. They didn't refer to me.
Yeah.
But sometimes they turn around, like I got a message this morning from a young potential online client who said she was going to go in a different direction, and she was very cost conscious and going to school. And I wished her the best. I told her if she ever has questions, please reach out. I did not at any point try to break down any of these objections. Because I could tell that she felt bad. And you can manipulate people in and push them and push them and push them. But what you're going to get is someone with buyer's remorse.
Yep.
Now, the flip side of that, I think it's valuable to be able to recognize what's going on with someone's buying decision. And if you have someone in front of you who we have to be careful about making this judgment. But theoretically, if we have someone we know who really does need to change their lifestyle because they're on a trajectory that's probably going to, continue to be unhealthy long-term, then that person, if you don't do a really good job of confidently showcasing how you can help that person, and that person really would benefit it and can afford it, if that person walks away because you do a poor job of kind of understanding what they really want, or you're just not confident, sooner or later, they're going to, on impulse, walk into a commercial gym. And honestly, there are going to be great experiences at commercial gyms with great trainers, but you may also get sold by the person at the front desk who assigns you to whichever trainer who may or may not be, a great experience for that person. So you could think about it this way. There can be a bit of an obligation to do the best job you can to identify if this person is the right fit. Maybe work through some of their hesitations. I don't want to say objections, but we know that's part of it.
Yeah.
And get that person on a better road. And
Sure.
I love looking back at my career and seeing a lot of the people I work with and how it was a major inflection point to a complete change of their health and their well-being.
That's awesome. That's awesome. One of the, on that note of objections, like I think the general strategy of addressing objections, it not only applies to sales, but I think it applies a great deal to coaching, depending on how much behavioral stuff you get into. But I mean, this idea of identifying what the obstacles are and finding creative solutions to either work around them or go through them. It's a great strategy. One that you mentioned, the idea of if someone says they can't afford it, dude, sometimes I go into these trainer groups and someone will say, what do I do when my client says they can't afford it? And you literally get people say, oh, you should say, I guess you don't care about your health. And it's like, is that like, that's the shittiest, like, what? Never. I hate that so much.
Ever used shame-based.
Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible. And on a number of times I've had people reach out to me and price has been an objection. And I'm completely comfortable just being very understanding and saying, hey, I completely get it. I'm here to answer any questions. If you change your mind, please reach out. I've had a lot of people who initially choose not to hire me and then hire me. And it happens a good percentage of the time. And I have no regrets being friendly and just letting it go and trusting that, hey, they're telling me they have a budget issue. It's not my job to try to convince them to rearrange their expenditures to hire me. So,
and there's a few things you can do there. You alluded, but I'll take it further. If price is a concern, one, you can develop media, you can develop programs, you can write articles, you can literally have a program article on your website that you could say, listen, this isn't tailored to you, but this will probably help you a great deal right now. Maybe this would be something that's valuable to you. If two, you leave yourself available to asking questions. Now, people will have different takes on this, and every once in a while you'll end up with one person who will really abuse the privilege, but that's not a reason to not be reasonably accessible. You're accessible through the Facebook group, for example. I'm very accessible through primarily Instagram is where most people get at me. You can catch me on Facebook too, but I'm comfortable answering questions. And I find most people are very conscientious, almost afraid to take from your time. They think you're too busy.
Yep.
But if you make yourself accessible when someone really needs it, that can go a long way. And three, if you have someone in your immediate universe that you trust who is less expensive, maybe they don't have quite as much experience, but they're really good. I have Bailey Lau, who I do my online women's group strength training platform together. Bailey has been training people for about 3 years relative to my 11 and a half. I mentor her and I train her. We have this group platform together, which is a lower cost platform.
Yes.
Which creates that option for the women as well that are in it, because there's no dudes in there. But I also can refer clients to Bailey if cost is a bit of a concern. Yep. And she charges her worth, but you know, it's there's still a difference between where I am and where she is. And I trust her to take great care of anybody. My cat Ozzy is like trying to jump down from the window. So what you doing, buddy? There you go. Good boy.
Nice.
I think there's a lot of really good stuff in there. It's funny, that's probably better business advice from you, Patrick, than we would get from some of these predatory business coaches. And to close that particular thread and to circle around is something else we want to talk about. I really do think that behavior is predatory, which ultimately is why it's okay to make light of it. I try not to be fire and brimstone on it. I try to be like, let's have a good chuckle at this and let's move on with our days.
I agree. Can I interject with one thing that you brought up earlier that I think would be fun to explore for a minute? You had mentioned these people who have their like a business descriptor or a statement on their profile. Do you ever find that the specificity is way too high? Like you'll see people that'll be like, I help 42-year-olds with a chipped tooth work on their cartwheels. And it's just like, you don't need to be quite that.
We all have the hubris thing. Mine is like, I help 38 to 39-year-old single mom lawyers with 2.2 children.
Yeah. It's like you're minimizing your audience to like 6 people. So
I think there are people in our space who have enough tenure and experience to know who they work best with. I think of people like
I agree.
Andy Morgan, Eric Bach are 2 good examples who they charge a higher rate for their monthly coaching. They have a very specific set of rules that they do it. I think both primarily work with men. I'm pretty sure that that's Andy for sure, and I think so for Eric. And I think they probably work with guys who are probably like 25 to 40ish. Now, don't quote me on exactly what they do, but those guys have been around a long time. Andy's written a bunch of books, so the guy's got massive credibility.
I don't know Eric well, but Andy's a great dude.
Andy's a great dude. Yeah, I
really like Andy. Yeah.
Anybody listening, go back and listen to the Andy Morgan podcast episode I had with him recently. He's been super. But I still think that there's a reasonably broad area where they're focusing. I think the advice to niche down for new trainers is a big mistake on average. I think also you don't choose your niche chooses you.
That's a very interesting way to look at it.
Think about you, Patrick. Did you start out coaching competitive powerlifters, or did you start or general population?
General population, completely.
And did you find along the way, plus your own interest and passion in competitive powerlifting, that people who were interested in powerlifting were coming to you, and gradually more and more and more of your clientele became powerlifters to the point where it's almost exclusively what you do?
I don't even, that's accurate. I don't even like call myself a powerlifting coach, because probably 40% of my clientele is Gen Pop right now, and about 60% are powerlifters. But I'd never have said I'm at least not that I can recall, I've never marketed myself as a powerlifting coach. It's just kind of happened.
I also think it would be disadvantageous to you to do so, because the general population, they would filter themselves. Whereas
yes,
I don't coach powerlifters. I don't coach competitive bodybuilders. I don't have any background in Olympic lifting. I work primarily with general population, older adults, which is still Gen Pop, young athletes. And that's where I want to be. I really like working with the general population, and they are the vast majority of the people. Most trainers, most coaches I know want to be a little bit busier. You niche yourself down, unless you are very, very experienced and that really has chosen you and you really love it, and you have a good pipeline into access to those type of people. I think you're closing yourself off to a more lucrative career.
Sure.
And I think that, let me grab my train of thought here. I apologize. It's sort of slipping on me a little bit.
I agree with you for what it's worth. I think you nailed it on that.
I really think that new coaches who go into hard niches are being misled. And I think you also need to gain the breadth of the experience of working with a lot of people. And I think that's really common advice. I don't think there's anything unique about me saying that.
Yeah. I do think that there's just been more of a trend for people to narrow it down, perhaps to a point of ridiculousness. I know I made a joke about it earlier, but I really do think that it's getting so specific that I'm like, I'm sure that that's the right way to do this. I don't know, especially starting out, like you said.
It's a phenomenon that I've talked about in a few different formats about trying to grab onto the available real estate. And I use the Liver King as the analogy. Okay. Right. The guy who's got a bigger, crazier looking beard than you. And the guy you can probably smell through pictures, right? If you want to be able to smell an image, go Google the Liver King. And
that's amazing.
Yes, I'm taking the piss out of him, but I'm being mean, but the guy doesn't care. He's got a big following. So we have people who have branded themselves around low carb, and that's been a thing for a long time. They reinvent it. It was Atkins, now it's keto, blah blah blah, whatever. We know that stuff's happening. And then you get the intermittent fasting people, and they've doubled down on that hard. And you get Dr. Jason Fung writing bullshit books like Obesity Code. It reads like fiction.
But because he has the word doctor in his name, everyone assumes that it's got to be correct.
And that's I don't want to go too far down that one, but I had a conversation with a guy who's people are oh, they like this doctor. I can't even say the guy's name, and he shares a lot of Twitter graphics, and he's very much like sugar is poison. And the guy's a pharmacist. So it's a doctor of pharmacy. Okay, there's credibility in a corner of that, but I mean, that's not someone who has any additional credibility on nutrition. It's like a doctor of chiropractics. There's one doctor of chiropractics that I generally have a lot of respect for being on scope, and that's the muscle doc, Jordan Shallow, because the guy has literally studied bodies and training anatomy and everything like that. And he's not one of these guys who's like, all right, we're going to, adjust your neck here and it's going to, cure your sugar,
asthma,
your sugar, this kind of crap, right?
Yeah.
So to get back on track about that. See, now I've lost my train of thought. Where were we? Liver King, real estate.
Liver King, yeah.
So you get the snake diet guy, who I actually met in person. He's a creepy little dude. He's from the Edmonton area. Who, all right, well, Jason Fung is peddling, fasting. So snake diet guy goes, let's do the snake diet, extreme fasting, 5-day fasting, dry fasting, crazy stuff, right? Snake juice. And we got, well, okay, low carb is owned. So all of a sudden, carnivore. Now we're just no vegetables whatsoever, just straight meat, right? Guys like Dr. Sean, another doctor, Dr. Sean Baker, and I think there's one in Paul Soldano. So again, people grabbing onto more real estate. Well, okay, well, that real estate's now taken, branded around. How can we take this further? What's like
what's the end game?
The expensive real estate, the core part of the city, and you keep getting to the outskirts and the outskirts until it's like a 2.5 hour commute to, the downtown core. And okay, let's double down on organ meat. So this guy has basically chosen, well, I'm going to go into ancestral dieting, but I'm only going to eat organ meat, right? So what's the next thing? Like, it's like the kidney guy, like the guy who only eats kidney. Like, you see what I mean about how like people are grabbing onto more and more narrow and extreme and less valuable real estate, but people are also drawn to extremism. So you can still make that work. And I think trainers get misled into thinking, well, I need to own a piece of real estate. You know what? It's a great piece of real estate to own? Mastery with the basics.
Yeah.
Skill as a respected coach. You're probably not going to turn around and be the shoulder guy the way that like Eric Cressy is really known for being the shoulder guy, right? Or it's going to be hard to catch Tony Jettlecourt and Dean Somerset on their hip and shoulder blueprint. You're not going to do it. There was something I just had there. I mean, glute trading. Like right now, some of the guys, and I don't want to say names, but some of the guys who are like, okay, there's a guy I never even heard of in Scottsdale, and we're talking about like this cancel culture. This guy's getting ripped apart because a lot of really nasty stuff came out about him. And he's got a big TikTok following. I'd never heard of him before. I'm not interested with it. But this guy's getting torn down to the point where like the police are involved because some stuff's really coming about this predatory stuff. Anyway, but this guy's branded around glute stuff. And, there's a lot of images of him on his social media. And no, I'm not talking about Brett. And I know Brett has had his ups and downs in the industry too. But, this other dude is like really like touching women in a way that you probably shouldn't be on your social media. And then there's a whole bunch of these other guys who followed the wake of Brett Contreras's like glute guy thing to brand around glutes. And there's another one who, again, a name I'm not going to mention. I went and looked at the videos because I remember this guy, and he reminds me of like a reject from the Insane Clown Posse. It's like, whoa, I'm seeing like, dude is in like places, his face and his hands are like in spaces they probably shouldn't be. I don't believe in the teardown of this stuff, but I'm just like, people are just trying to grab onto like real estate that they think is going to be really marketable and attractive. And anyway, we've talked about some interesting stuff, and I hope that people realize that in discussing some of these names and the things that are going on out there, take this stuff and apply it to how you interact with the industry, how you interact with clients, how you market and brand yourself, how you niche yourself, because there's definitely some pitfalls. We wanted to talk a little bit about imposter syndrome, and I only got about 9 minutes with you. So I always love setting you loose on this particular topic. So, I'm just going to like let you have the floor.
Sure. Yeah. So imposter syndrome is something that I struggle with off and on. It's kind of like this, I'd say that's like cloud that just kind of sticks over my head. And once in a while, the clouds part and things are fine. But oftentimes it's just this dull thing. And then once in a while, there's a thunderstorm and I feel like I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And it's what I've learned about it is that it's incredibly common, like, and it's even common in people who I would never suspect would have it. Like there are people who I think are industry leaders who I look up to. And when I've had conversations about them in private, like they say, yeah, I struggle with this. And I'm like, what? Because in my head, I'm like, well, you're like the best at this. And so I just find it interesting that, and I'll be honest, I find it comforting because it kind of normalizes that, well, wait a second, even these people that I look up to sometimes struggle with the same thing. And I don't believe, or I don't subscribe to the idea that I've seen put forth that it's actually a matter of competence. I think that it's a matter of your perception of your competence being different from your actual competence. And I think that that's kind of definitionally, that's kind of what it is. I think more accurately, it's that you think you're fooling people into them believing that you're competent when you really don't think you are. But anyway, what I find that is the hardest part about it is that it makes it difficult for me to produce content. Like, I feel like I'm not able to put things forth or put things out there because I feel like I don't have value when I am feeling those sensations of imposter syndrome. And so it's just an interesting thing. And I found a few things helpful for it. And I want to be clear that none of this, I'm not making a claim that any of this is just evidence-based stuff. Not at all. I'm only saying from experience, this is how I feel. And, so I want to make sure that part's clear. I find that what I am able to do is help my clients. And so I will quite literally do even more interaction with the people I'm coaching. And I find that it's just reaffirming to me, and it makes me feel good. And it makes me realize, hey, wait a second, look at what these people have accomplished. I have objective evidence that I am doing good, and I just feel good helping people. And so that has been remarkably effective. And I'm also going to share something that I'm going to paraphrase because I don't want to misrepresent what someone said. But Greg Nuckols and Eric Trexler do the Stronger by Science podcast. I love those guys, by the way. They're just fantastic. And they do Q&As, and I had asked about, hey, can you talk about imposter syndrome? And something Greg said, and again, completely paraphrasing, want to be clear on that. Apologies to Greg if I get this wrong, by the way. But essentially what I gathered from it was, he said that part of this hinges on this idea that you think that everyone else knows what they're doing and you're the one that doesn't. And the reality is nobody knows what the hell they're doing. Like, you think that everyone has their shit together, but they don't. And so it was awkwardly comforting.
There's I talked about some of the stuff in presentations, and I referenced an article Dean Somerset wrote years ago, and he discusses all the different stages of the things he's done in his career, like how he started doing seminars in person in services for other coaches, and then he started filming them and doing info products. And every step of the way, this article is like, and I didn't know what I was doing. And Dean is a great example of someone who, very poised, very polished. I get to hang out this weekend. By the time people are listening, it'll already been done. He's doing one of his scientific applications of mobility training here.
Nice.
Which, again, if Dean is doing something and I'm near it, I'm going to sign up and promote it, right? I really believe in his stuff.
Sure.
And he's very poised. He's very confident. And yet he's very open about the fact along the way, a lot of the things that he stepped into, he didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah.
It's the fact that he took the steps. And what you said about helping your clients, I lean on this one too. When I'm talking to people about putting themselves out there and sharing content, people think, what are the lies that people say about why they don't share content? I've got an article, I've got a presentation on this, is, well, I don't have enough experience, or, I don't have enough followers. I don't know enough. Your coach has been working with clients for 6 months. And in that space of 6 months, you've helped someone lose a bit of weight. You've helped that person change lifestyle behavior. You've helped them get comfortable in a gym environment that they were intimidated, but now they're, in there independently. You've helped them build muscle. You've helped them work through around an injury. There is proof that you actually have helped people. And there's no difference between having those conversations and working with that person in front of you, and then sharing what you did via social media. And I promise you, nobody who matters is out there on the internet looking to police what you're saying. Greg Nuckols is not scrolling through your social media. Greg's a very busy man, like straight crazy busy. He is not going through your post and going, well, actually, according to this research thing here, what you said here isn't technically correct. That doesn't exist. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
If someone comes in and they're disingenuous, who are not a follower, and just starts ranting and going nuts, guess what? That's what the block, restrict, or mute buttons are for. Okay, just get rid of that. Delete those.
Nothing wrong with doing that.
If you have someone who is a follower, but has a disagreement and comes in and they're a bit negative, well, you have an opportunity to approach in a charitable way and just ask questions, say, okay, cool. Like I want to hear what your thoughts are on this. And you may find that actually it's a misinterpretation, or they're having a bad day, or there's more common ground than you realize. And you can often turn an adversary into an ally with that type of approach.
Absolutely.
I think it's a very good idea to approach most of these situations charitably. Patrick, I don't have much time left. I want to make sure people know where to find you. And I know that you're also really passionate about something recently, and I was going to make sure that you got a chance to shout out. There's something, I think it was the Trevor Project that you really.
Oh yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. I meant to mention this in the imposter syndrome thing, because sometimes when I'm feeling down, one thing that I will do is start a fundraiser or donate, time or money to a cause that I believe in, and I'm passionate about helping people. And the Trevor Project is an organization that works primarily with the LGBTQ community, and they work in suicide prevention because that's a population that tends to have higher suicide rates. And so they have like crisis counseling and things like that. And so I just randomly, I was upset about something and just not feeling well. And I decided, you know what, I'm just going to randomly do this. And I set a goal for like $500. And I cleared 1,000 in like the first few hours. It got over $1,000, and I'm like, I feel really good about this. And so, thank you for bringing that up. By the way, it gives me a chance to give that place a shout out. And so it's also another reason I love my group, because people, I would say that most people have similar values in the group, and I think that it's a wonderful thing, and when I put a cause out there that people believe in, they support it, and that just makes me feel good. So
good.
Thank you for bringing that up.
My pleasure. I know it's important to you, and I tend to, as a rule, don't highlight this sort of stuff on my media. I really tend to keep it fitness and nutrition. But one of the things that I like to do is, and I don't know if I've ever said this on air before, and there are a few people in the podcast library of 220 episodes who I'd look back and I go, I wouldn't bring that person on again. I don't like their value system. But the overwhelming majority have really good value systems. Like you're someone I hold in deeply high regard and deep respect. And I know you're a good human being, and I want people to know more about you. That's why you're here. And I look at a lot of the guests that I've had, and maybe I don't make the episode about the fact that they're a member of the gay community, LGBTQ plus community. But if you go on to what they're doing, and I'll use my friend Jen Kish as an example. There's an episode where I had Jen. Jen is the now retired but former team captain of the Canadian Women's Olympic rugby team. They won bronze in Rio. Jen and I started out as trainers together. She's a very close friend. And she recently reached out to me wanting me to appear in underwear and socks in her wife's music video. Wife, the young singer. That's off brand for me, but I have a friend.
Sure.
That was funny. Yeah, I know, right? So we didn't talk about those kind of things with Jen. I wanted people to know that she's a great coach, a great human being. But if you go and you dive into her media, you're going to see her talking more about these kind of issues. And I would rather take these people, make it about what great quality coaches and human beings they are. And if you choose to dive further into their media and get into those sort of things, then that's one of the best ways that I find. So that's just me and my approach. But I do conscientiously think about what's the value system of who I have on air.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where do people find you?
As of now, Facebook is still the best place to locate me, either on my personal profile, Patrick Umphrey, or the group Eat, Train, Progress. If you'd like to join it, just please check out the rule set before you agree to join. We probably do have more rules than most people, and it's not for everyone, but I love the group. I think it's amazing. So you can also follow me on Instagram. Say it again.
I said, don't go in there and ask people what you want to write.
Yeah, don't go in there and immediately ask what you're supposed to blog about, unless you want it to be hilarious. Or on Instagram, like I do check Instagram regularly. I primarily view client videos because a lot of my powerlifting clients will just post their lifts on Instagram and then just tag me, and then I go in there and look at it. But I really don't post a lot of content. That's also something, as you know, Andrew, I've been talking to you about that in private because I think that you've got that nailed down. And so if I do go that route, I'll be copying you for the most part. So not your content, but your methods, So yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think those are probably the two best places.
Great, my friend. It's been great to catch up. Great to have you here.
Likewise.
Hopefully, I'm speaking. I got a smaller speaking engagement in Minneapolis the weekend of May 13th and 14th. Dr. Brad Schoenfeld, Dr. Stu Phillips are two of the headline speakers. My friend Luke Carlson.
Awesome.
And if it works for you, it's the Resistance Exercise Summit. If I get to see you there, we'll get to hang out and have a beer. Everybody else listening, thank you so much. I hope you go and check out what Patrick's doing, because Patrick's really great proof that you don't need to scale the large social media audience to have a really great business and an impact on a community. And it gives you just another avenue to potentially do good work. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.